Okay, we'll reconvene into open session. There are no reportable action items from closed session. The grad waiver is part of the consent agenda. Is there a volunteer to read the board norms tonight?
I'll read them.
Thank you.
The board will come prepared and be fully present and engaged, deliberate effectively and listen openly without interrupting, work collaboratively and strive for consensus, maintain perspective with a sense of humor, not repeat each other or ourselves, not have side conversations, give full attention to the proceedings, no cell phone use, focus on the best interest of all students, commit to no surprises.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Is there a public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we can move forward. Now I'm going to ask for approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, or does anyone first like to have any item removed from the consent agenda before making a motion? Okay, can I ask for a motion then to approve the consent agenda, please? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so this time, because we had a resolution, we will have to take a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Aye, thank you. Okay, so now we'll move on to trustee reports. I'll just let, what did I say? I did, well, they are. I just didn't say student. Okay, so who'd like to go first? Anyone in particular? You look tired. Have you been studying a lot, I assume? You all look tired. Come to think of it. Oh, you guys, oh, yeah, there you go, yay. Oh, gosh, get some rest if you can. Oh, okay. Well, tonight's going to be a short night, so you can go home and study. Okay.
So at Drake, we had an Earth Day celebration. So that was mostly run by CDISC, which is our junior-senior academy, which is environmentally focused. So for Earth Day, we had a no cars on campus policy. So all of our parking lots were closed. So that encouraged students to walk and bike and carpool if they needed to drive, take the bus to get to school. For the kids that live really far away, there are some street parking that kids could park for the kids that live far enough away that you can't feasibly walk or bike. So then at that Earth Day, we had lunch, and lots of organizations brought booths. So lots of nonprofits, and then also our CDISC had different ones, and so did our GSE, which is our environmental club at Drake. So they included lots of different organizations who are also talking to people, just educating people, and also telling people about volunteer opportunities. And then, so our girls swim team made MCAL championships.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So very exciting. Yeah. And then we also had a rally for the last rally of the year for prom. So at that rally, we honored the teachers that are leaving Drake. So we gave them flowers and certificates and graduation hats, and said thank you for them teaching at Drake. We're all very sad to have all of them leaving. And then also, as a lead up to prom, our Body Positivity Club did a poster campaign about trying to spread body positivity before prom, which can be a big issue. So, yeah. Bit of a sadder note, over spring break, one of our student athletes, Luke O'Hiden, lost his hand during a construction accident. So our thoughts goes out to him and his recovery. Last week, his friends and family started a GoFundMe to help pay for medical bills and a prosthetic hand. And within a week, they've already raised over $160,000.
Amazing.
And continue to raise more. So that's really incredible, and just a thank you to the community for supporting him and helping him through this really tough time.
Wow. Thank you, Maddie.
So at TAM, we just finished up our elections for our associative student body, so like the larger school. So those were announced on Monday, and then we have class council elections for like each individual grade our next week. Our second annual outside TAM, which is kind of like a mix between Link Crew leadership and our music department, is next Friday on the football field. I think we're praying for good weather. Where they have student bands perform, and then they have like, it's kind of supposed to be like a goodbye seniors, welcome 8th graders. So we reach out to MBMS to be like, hey, come visit us. And now that I think about it, I should reach out to MLK. And Willow Creek and that school district in Bolinas. I will do that tomorrow morning. Our freshmen, I'm not planning it, but our freshman Olympics from Link Crew were last week, and we had like the perfect weather. It was like so fun. Like everyone was like screaming at our freshmen, and like everyone got really competitive. Our Link Crew thought we were gonna win, so we all like stormed the podium, but we didn't win, and it was really awkward.
Oh, that's so funny.
So we had one at every, yeah. I mean, I'm confident in us, so we did not place top 3 this morning. AP tests are next week, if you can't tell by us.
Yeah, it was. Something was going on.
Yeah, breakthrough day looks like it's like 95% going to happen this year, so like fingers crossed. I really believe in SOAR and BSU and leadership, that it's looking good.
What day is it again?
So it's the week of the 24th is the Friday. The Monday is like the 19th, I want to say. That the week before Memorial Day week, or Memorial Day weekend. Oh my God, imagine if we had a Memorial Day week. That would be nice. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. Okay, yeah. So it's gonna be that week. We're gonna have events throughout the week, and then a big. We have these community days. That one's gonna be run by SOAR and BSU, and on those, we're gonna try and rethink those to figure out a way to like keep kids on campus. So we're gonna experiment with some possibilities. Yeah, and we handed out metal straws on Earth Day. That was popular.
Oh, thank you.
Redwood had our prom last Saturday, and so in the week before that, we've been doing a lot of activities. We did the prom Olympics for the first year.
Prom Olympics.
Yeah, so 8 juniors and seniors with an even amount of boys and girls competed in various events, and they were drawn out of a raffle, and it was a super big deal, and it was announced over the loudspeakers. And so that whole week before, they did cornhole, Jenga, karaoke, and trivia, and it was actually really successful. A lot of people were watching. Jenga went on through lunch and people stayed, and karaoke was the most popular. And so then 2 people won free prom tickets for them and their date. And then prom was that Saturday, and it went super well. It was at the Bentley Reserve in the city, and everyone I've talked to said it was a really beautiful venue, and that it was better than last year's. It's the former Federal Reserve Bank in the city. Yeah, a lot of people liked that. The theme was Midnight in Paris, so there were crepes and a mime outside, which was scary, but people liked it. It was memorable, so it was scary, but it was a way to pass the time when you were waiting in line to get in. So
Oh, wow.
Is that why you're scared?
I haven't seen it, but maybe for other people. But one problem that the leadership classes and administration is still trying to deal with is that a lot of students leave prom way too early. So it started at 8, ended at 11, but I'd say most people got in the door a little after 8:30, and then the doors closed at 9. And then the majority of people had left by 10. And so then there was a lot of extra food, and there was still another hour left, and there was about 100 kids still there. So leadership and administration are trying to work together to figure out maybe some kind of incentive later in the night to get people to stay, or even putting a cap on when you can leave.
Yeah, I thought they locked you in
Yeah.
until 10 o'clock.
They
Yeah,
they
10,
don't.
like- Yeah.
They can, but they haven't done it in a really long time,
Yeah,
and so they
'cause
just
I
weren't
thought-
sure. But that's a possibility, because it's just a waste of food and money.
Well, yeah, and the parent, I mean, yeah, you want to know.
Yeah, and I mean, the leadership class, the senior class, has been fundraising for it for 4 years, so it's just, yeah.
Yeah, for all, lots of reasons, yeah.
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 Twice. We have our ASB elections next Thursday, and there's a campaign meeting tomorrow for anyone running for those positions. And leadership is trying to do something a little different this year. They're going to make just one wall where you can hang all your posters, because in years past it's just been really overwhelming, and people just try and make bigger and bigger banners and cover other people's, and it's just a lot. So one wall.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. And we've also been talking a lot about maybe putting spending caps on campaigns, because we had
We
one
really are
very
doing that.
ambitious
Yeah,
person
there
last
you
year
go.
who bought all these Instagram ads and Snapchat ads and pulled up in front of the school with a huge truck with his name on it. He's now our ASB president. I mean, he's a great president.
Yeah.
He really wanted it, but he set the bar high, and so we've been talking about trying to limit that somehow, and we didn't really reach a decision, but we thought that limiting where you can put your posters would help that. And then we sort of decided among ourselves that we would not do any Snapchat or Instagram ads, because they just feel kind of invasive when you're at home scrolling through and you see an ad.
We have a spending limit, and we actually lowered it this year
Oh, okay.
from $50 to $30.
Okay. Redwood has had a really good spring season for sports. We had a boys volleyball game night for the first time last Friday. And they said it was really great that people finally came to their games. They've been struggling to keep an audience. And a lot of people didn't realize that volleyball is 5 games that you have to win to win. So a lot of people left after the 3rd game, because Redwood was down 2-1, and I guess they thought it was over, so a lot of people left. But Redwood ended up
Like a
winning.
sitcom today.
And the theme was neon, and so we do shirts for game nights every time, and we did these neon shirts that were a couple different colors, and they were really popular. Girls lacrosse, boys track, boys swimming, boys tennis, all won MCALs and
Wow.
are heading into playoffs. We're also preparing for AP tests. The leadership class has been having auditions for graduation performers, for singers and people doing speeches. And then last Friday, we also did a lawn chair Friday. We tried to do one last year, but it wasn't super successful. But last Friday, it was really great weather, and a lot of people brought lawn chairs. And if you were maybe a freshman and you didn't want to carry that around all day, you could bring a blanket. And we're talking about making more of those, and maybe like a bin to have blankets. And then we had otter pops and music, and the boys volleyball team was playing volleyball on the field to promote their game night.
Oh, that sounds
And it was just a
nice.
good way to get people out of their cars and relax, and it was really fun.
Yeah, that is nice.
So, in independent study, Grace Aviles and Kim Stifler are close to finalizing the schedule for next year's classes, with new electives such as street law and ethnic studies, which I'm sure are going to be a big hit. Juniors and seniors of all programs have taken the SBAC and SCAS tests. The overall response to the tests is unsurprisingly a bit negative from just overall state testing, high schoolers. But since all classes were canceled that day, students were happy about that. And free food. It's a tradition at Tamalpais that during state testing, students are given free food. And this year we were given free food again, so students were very happy about that. The yearbook has been finished and turned into the printing company. We will receive the printed the copies on finals week, and the students will receive them, even if they didn't give the donations. This year, for the first time, we asked donations. The parent fund is not paying for all of them. And even if students did not give a donation like we asked, they will all receive yearbooks. The team program on the 25th had a potluck dinner to celebrate their Joshua Tree trip. Which was a big success. They loved it. They had a wonderful time. On the 26th, the teamies went on a day hike to keep in shape and to remind themselves that it's not over yet. They still have a lot of work to do till the end of the year. On May 1st, the 24 new team students will be selected, and then they'll start talking with the team teachers, and they'll get a sense of what the next year will be like. Of course, some students usually drop, so the list is very flexible, but hopefully it'll be solidified by the end of the year. And pathways. Incoming pathway students will be going to a counseling meeting on the 2nd at College of Marin. They'll be advised on their class choices, and they'll apply for that class, and they'll apply for those classes at the time. They have advanced priority in College of Marin, which they are lucky to get. I wish I could have that myself, and they will apply early and hopefully get into all the classes they apply to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course.
Charlotte, to your knowledge, what are the application criteria for a team admission?
It's not much. I applied myself last year. It's lottery to win, but to apply, you just need to be a student in the TAM district, I believe. There is an application where you get a teacher recommendation. You fill out a few questions, and Corbin might know a bit more about this than I do.
And it's in parent orientation.
Oh, yes. And yes, there is an orientation where you must go to get the application itself, and if parents go as well to see if their kids would actually be well in that situation. But I think it's a pretty fair opportunity for students.
So it's just pick out of a hat?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lottery,
So it's just pick out a hat, lottery?
to my knowledge.
It's a stratified lottery.
In order to ensure representation.
So it's proportional gender. And, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
I know what you're thinking about. Okay, very good. Thank you. These are really good reports, and good luck next week. And I really do hope you can get some rest and get through it. You will be fine, but just get some sleep. Yeah. Okay, you're on, Superintendent.
Hi, everybody. So I think I mentioned this before, but I'm starting to lose track of everything. But so National Teacher Appreciation Week is May 6th through the 10th. In my April newsletter, I had shared part of my educational history and wrote about the impact my 5th and 6th grade special education teacher, Mrs. Kearns, had on me. So I just wanted to share a little more of that story tonight. So she was my 5th and 6th grade special education teacher. So prior to having her as a teacher, I'd struggled to connect with teachers, partly because I had changed elementary schools 3 times. So every 2 years I was changing schools. And what I recall is frequently feeling lost and behind everyone else in the school. And most of my teachers were kind to me, but I would often be pulled aside and be told that I either had to focus more or that I wasn't trying hard enough. So that's my recollection of being an elementary student. And after what I would call a trying time for both me and my parents in the 4th and 5th grade, at which point I decided I would no longer go to school. I was called stubborn at one point. Fortunately for me, my mom was an advocate. I have an elder sibling who has dyslexia, and so my mother, after I flat out was refusing to go to school and getting sick in the mornings and stuff, my mother finally got me tested for a learning difference, and lo and behold, it turns out that I have dyslexia, which for me, it means my brain processes information differently than most people. The way it manifested for me most was being a slow reader, and my 5th grade teacher, when things got really bad, it was because she was making me stay in through recess. So I was a really active kid, and I was like, so I'm a really active kid, I'm a really slow reader, I'm really frustrated, and now I can't go outside and run around. It's like, so this was a boiling point that you can see coming. Through both morning recess and lunch, I had to stay in. It was not nice. She was not nice. I was not happy with her. Hence, I dropped out of school. So I'll show her.
Hold any grudges here?
Yeah. So anyway, as I was saying, I was a much slower reader. I had difficulty spelling even common words, and letter and word order to this day is, what I would have done for spell check on a computer at that age. Anyway, I had Mrs. Kearns, who showed up in my life in the 5th grade and just completely changed my educational trajectory. At that time, I was like, whoa, she's like magic. She knows some magic trick that she's doing. But she really helped me understand how my brain processed information and helped me recognize when my brain was making mistakes. I still don't know how she did that. But, it really wasn't easy. And I realize now that she was actually teaching me about my learning and how I learned.
Yeah.
And how powerful that was. And the fact that, within 2 years, I went from a kid who literally, would have done anything to not go to school to absolutely loving school and loving learning and realizing all the potential there was and loving reading, which had been essentially, in my view, a punishment up until that point, right? So today when I have an opportunity to speak, I try to speak about her a lot because, for me, she was the caring adult with whom I connected. She kept me in school and she kept me learning. She's one of the many that, I would say, one of the many teachers I went on to have who really inspired me to be an educator.
That's nice.
And I think because she was, I think she was a real educational advocate. And when I look back, when people say, well, why did you want to be a teacher? What is it? And I think every kid deserves that educational advocate.
Right.
And she was that for me. I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful to the many teachers that I've worked here with in the TAM district over the last 17 years who I see the same qualities as Mrs. Kearns had.
That's
They
wonderful.
are advocates for their kids. They fight for their kids. They're the adult who, is going to say, whoa, what's going on? Is everything okay? The teachers who know that we teach kids and not curriculum, And so for that, I just want to say thank you. I am really grateful for Mrs. Kearns. And for the many, many teachers who really change somebody's life in that way. So thank you for everything you do every day, teachers. So other than that, I just wanted to share that I was able to attend the Marin United panel discussion with Leslie and Cynthia on vaping the other night, which was super informative and terrifying. And in my April newsletter, I provided some information for parents and teens around vaping cessation. We've been doing a lot of work on the sites and a lot of workshops for kids through wellness, so that's been good. I also attended Congressman Huffman's town hall on ending gun violence. It was nice to see that we had several district students who served on the panel, and I'd also met with many of the adults who were on the panel. One change that we are going to make this year and moving forward is that we're going to include some gun safety information in our parent-student handbook, particularly around, emphasizing access to lethality, that it's a very serious matter. And then lastly, Mary, do you have the graphic? Thanks. So we are actively looking for students who wish to serve on the Sexual Violence Prevention Task Force. Here is our framework, which is up there. And if you can scroll down, Mary, it just gives a little bit of detail of what goes under all of those also. So students who are interested can send an email to their principal expressing interest, and the principals will compile all of the names and pass them along to me. I'm also getting names from students, from wellness, from counselors, from some of our GSA groups, so lots of different groups providing names, and they will get an information. I'm going to send out an informational email also.
Grade level, all grade levels can
Yeah.
apply?
Yes. Yeah. So that's it.
Oh, you attended the Unified Games. You attended the Unified Games.
Oh, I did. I attended the Unified Games with Barbara. They were fantastic. The Unified Track Meet was at Drake on April 18th. It was blazing hot out there on that track and field, but it's always just such a nice event to see. It was great.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to trustee considerations. The first up is discuss and take action on resolution 18-24 for certificated staffing reduction. And I believe that's Lars. There you are.
Thank you, President Lundgren. Mayor, if you could pull up the resolution, please. As you are aware, prior to March 15th, the board approved a resolution for reduction in certificated staffing. That was the initial notice of layoff for certificated employees. Given a significant bump in enrollment, well beyond the anticipated bump in enrollment, literally 100 additional students beyond that enrollment growth that we've been projecting, primarily due to students who typically would take a private school route, they're now coming to us. So we've had to rescind the bulk of the initial layoff notices. We have a statutory deadline of May 14th to make these final decisions. We're comfortable bringing this forward tonight, given our enrollment growth. So we ask that you approve this resolution, and we are asking that you reduce certificated staff by 2.2 FTE, and we are required to have the names there, else we wouldn't normally do that, but we're required to do so. So I respectfully ask that you approve this resolution for a reduction on certificated staff.
Any discussion, questions? Student trustees, do you have any questions or comments? Okay. Can I
So
ask
moved.
for motion? I didn't ask for motion yet. I'm gonna be very strict tonight. Okay. Okay, this is a roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That passed. And Lars will
Thank you.
go to the next item, discuss and take action on contract for replacement of Redwood High School baseball artificial fields and resolution 18-25.
As the board is aware, we have a number of synthetic turf fields scattered throughout our school district, including the Red Hill facility, which is not actually on a school site, but out in San Anselmo. And we have a 10-year maintenance schedule for replacement of these fields. We plan ahead, and we do our very best to devote necessary funds, as years progress for these replacements. Next in line is Moody Field right here at Redwood High School. President Lundgren, you will recall that the former board approved a CMAS contract, essentially
Yes.
allowing us to partner with other school districts around the state, and it's basically economies of scale. We're saving money by going this route with these field replacements. Field Turf is the contractor. We've researched the type of infill for these replacement fields. This is a non-toxic substance that we are bringing forward to you. So we ask your approval of this contract, and we'll begin the work in the not too distant future, as summer is soon upon us.
Any comment? Question?
Lars, do you see any substantial increase in what we're going to approve here in terms of amounts? Any of those hidden costs popping up?
No, it's a pretty straightforward replacement. We'll peel the old turf off. We'll make sure that there's sufficient perk in the soil and so forth. We'll install the pad, and we'll put the new carpet down. It's pretty straightforward. Field Turf, I should also say, is the leading contractor in the state. I've worked with them in other districts too, and it's a quality product. And they continue to make innovation and improvements, in the type of field that the kids are playing on. Gets a lot of use, as you know. All of our facilities do, a lot of use.
Okay, can I ask for a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And thank you. And it's a roll call vote. Mary?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
That
much.
passed. And now Dr. Tara Topier, update and discussion of education-related legislation.
Hi. So there are, sorry, Mary, can I, the PowerPoint? Yeah, thanks. So there's several bills that are sort of in the works right now that could have, significant impact on us. So I thought it would be important just to give the board an opportunity to discuss them and make sure we're clear on what they mean for us and what they mean for across the state. And just a reminder that we are part of the Joint Legislative Action Committee through the county, and I attend those meetings and various board members attend them, and Barbara's usually present for all of them, and for our legislative action days as well. The county does try to unite on as many, topics as possible in order to have some sort of momentum and, lobbying power. And we also meet fairly regularly with our representatives on the state level. So, and there's been a lot of meetings and a lot of conversation lately, as not just around these bills, but around things like the pension and stuff. So the three, well, they're not bills, but not all of them are bills anyway. But the SB 328, which is Senate Bill 328, which is the late start bill, AB 751, and then the amendment to lower the requirement for parcel tax were the three that I wanted to focus on tonight. So SB 328 has gotten a lot of traction across the state. This is the bill that would require middle and high schools to start no earlier than 8:30 a.m. If you're in a non-rural district. They have exempted rural, and just rural is a term that is an actual term for, there's a designation at the state level for what rural means for a district. We are not rural, just FYI. Okay. If this bill were to pass, then by July 1 or the end of the existing bargaining unit agreement is when we would have to start it. So I think a lot of organizations have come out strongly against this bill, and I think the clarification here has to be is that they don't oppose late start. They don't deny the science behind it. But being legislated takes away local control. And that is the big issue. The big issue is that there are so many nuances that a school district deals with that the state legislature just is not aware of, that to legislate this at us could have really big ramifications. And I will use LA Unified to try to coordinate like the busing. We don't necessarily bus, but for us there is the potential. We partner with public transit, and that pushes public transit into more congested commute times. That might make the fewer buses available for us. There's so many logistics that go into a late start that the opinion of a lot of these organizations is that those decisions should be left to the local board to decide. The local board knows, and the local communities, what kind of impact that's going to have. And there's also some other considerations that, sorry, I thought I had another slide, that, some people have brought up that there are, students who have there's after-school programs, there are internships, there are students who work. There's a lot of things that as you, push them later into the afternoon, it starts to interfere with those things. For us, we don't have lights in our fields. So our winter sports seasons with soccer is already pretty congested. But anyway, so I know that there's been a lot of talk recently around this. And Barbara, you might know more, but the feeling that we're getting is that this could pass. It's a matter of whether or not it would be vetoed. We don't know. Jerry Brown was a very strong local control person. That hasn't really been tested for Governor Newsom yet. So this is an interesting one for us to watch and continue to educate folks on why a lot of school districts are opposed to the legislation, but not necessarily a late start. I know for us, TAM, has been in conversation with the city of Mill Valley, and there's some major concerns around traffic congestion and traffic, so traffic studies would have to be done because Mill Valley Middle and TAM are so close together.
Yeah. On TAM, the Mill Valley School District spent I think 5 years. They just got all of the schools in Mill Valley starting 10 minutes apart because there are 3 main roads in Mill Valley that we were looking into lowering our start time, and the police were please don't, or right. Accidents will go up. It's not easy to do.
Thank you. Yeah.
If this passed, will we be forced to change our start times to 8:30?
Yep.
Okay. For all schools?
For all of our high schools. In the TAM district, all of our schools would have to start 8:30 or later. And then all middle schools would have to start at 8:30 or later. And I think there are some middle schools in the county that start at 8:20. So they would be pushed back also. But yeah.
But I think, and I may have heard wrong or read wrong, but I thought I read in the TAM PTA bulletin, they were encouraging parents to call their local legislation and say to vote for this. And so you also just mentioned if there's a way we can let the community understand why these organizations oppose it. I'm wondering if there's anything we could do at the board level, and one of, depending on, assuming we would have to talk about it as a board, but, you send out the board update after the board meeting and letting people know what our concerns are about that so that they hear another view. We've been silent on it as a board.
Right.
So just a thought.
Who encouraged, so is it TAM-PTA?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
find it. And I think they got it from the national level, I thought. That was the part, and national PTA. And so as a parent, reading that, I thought it sounds right. And you would, that's a pretty powerful mechanism they have. And so I think if we could even get the word out why we're not looking at it that way, it'd be
I
helpful.
think TAM journalism, TAM News should do an article on why it's
Tara,
complicated.
I think that's a really good idea.
I might have just wrote down as a good op-ed idea for me to write.
Good job, Karen.
Portantino evidently has a child in, I think he's from Orange County.
Yep.
So it's very, very personal to him because he has seen whatever happens for his child. And he and his staff have been very persistent about the research done about the sleep. So we have to counter, these things have to counter that narrative. And I think that's why it's
Right.
gained some traction down there.
Yeah, and I think I think the research is also expanding. And again, I'm not opposed to the start time. It's just I don't want to be told we have to do it in 2 years. I think some of the other concerns that have been raised around, I think the other thing is that it's not necessarily resulting in more sleep for teens because there's other complicating factors and that there's again, there's a lot that goes into it. I don't think that means you throw it out, but I think overall wellness is also part of, I think, the conversation, and just later start times isn't going to be a fix-all for everything. But I agree with you. I think getting it out there to parent groups and stuff about, what our concerns are. And it was interesting when we met with our, assemblymen and shared our concerns of have you thought about transportation and what that's going to do to our schedules? And they were like, no, what? And we were like, are you asking? And it was just surprising that they weren't asking questions. They weren't reaching out. And they were surprised by the laundry list of things we came up with that would complicate this and make it very difficult for us. And, I think, like I said, we don't even have our own busing systems, but most schools, it's, like Kara was saying, it's a relay. You don't have a bus for every school. You use them over and over, and it's just, and also pushing deeper into main commute times in the Bay Area particularly is complicated.
I also know, I don't know exactly how specific this was, but I was on the bell schedule committee last year when Tam was looking into lowering our bell schedule, and we actually found by I think it was survey data or something, that by moving the late start later in the day, I think we were trying to do it to 8:30, students were actually missing more school because of sports, because we don't have lights on the field, that it would actually increase student
because they get
anxiety.
excused early.
Because, for example, I'm on the girls' golf team, so I don't go to my fourth period for the majority until October. That all of a sudden, if I have to start, it kind of, students actually end up going to less, I don't know, it caused other problems. That's another.
Yeah. Drake does have a late start.
Yeah, I know for Drake that didn't happen, and students are saying they're getting to bed at about the same time, so they are getting more sleep than they were before. But we did also reorganize our schedule, and I think we made our schedule more efficient, so it's hard to know because we ended up only pushing our end time
Yeah.
not that much later. So we were able to rework our schedule to include the late start time,
Yeah.
but then not have such a late end time that cut into sports. So it did actually increase student
Yeah.
sleep.
And at Drake, they did have to coordinate with Ross Valley.
Yeah.
But it was a little easier, like with Redwood and all the different towns. It's just, it gets more complicated.
Any other? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think-
I,
Oh, I thought you were
There
pointing at
is
somebody
a-
else.
as some of us have discussed, those folks who do a lot of shift work, there's a lot of health
Yeah.
workers in the healthcare industry in this county. And shift work is critical in terms of their times, set times. And that's going to really be difficult for families. And we're still going to have the kids here earlier as without, we're going to have to
Yeah.
figure out what we're going to do for them while they're here from 7:30 to 8:30.
Yeah, that was a big concern that came up too, particularly for middle schools, but also, freshmen, that for a lot of parents, there's, that either adds a burden of morning care, or kids are going to be showing up on campus at the same time, and they'll have to be supervised, and providing, I know that when Dan was looking at the early start last year, I started getting bombarded with emails from parents who were concerned about how that was going to impact their family and drop off and transportation issues. It was very, very real for them. Yeah.
So this is not an action item, but I'm wondering, can we call it a consensus item? Or something we want to think more about, actually putting out some sort of a
Position statement?
position statement as a board?
Yes, I would agree with that, and tell the government hands off. It's a local control issue, and if it becomes an issue to discuss, there's transportation issues, there's work schedule issues, there's lay out the five categories,
lay
right?
out,
Student supervision issues, class time missed for athletes having to leave early and miss additional class time. Preclusion of work/internship opportunities. So lay out 6 or
Really
7
lay it
categories,
out, yeah.
and so that will guide our discussion when and if we decide to have it, absent this being passed and not vetoed.
Yeah, thank you.
I can provide an outline like
Yeah, I
that.
think that would be great. Any other discussion before we move on to the next slide?
To Assembly Bill 751.
I figured that out.
So this is a very interesting bill. This is the, allowing districts to swap out the SAT or ACT for the SBAC for as the junior year test. This has kind of engendered a lot of really interesting conversation. One, it provides much greater access to all kids for college entrance exams, which is a really good thing. And SAT is now aligned to the Common Core standards. There's, as far as assessing what students are learning, I think all of that is aligned. The school district's taking on the cost of the ACT and SAT. And I don't think people worry so much about districts paying for it. People have very strong feelings about College Board and as a business, and that this is a way for them to really augment income. I think, by and large, having all kids have access to the SAT or ACT would outweigh that. I think it's I do worry, I don't know if it's, I don't worry. I wonder about, will wealthy districts then be able to provide the SAT to all of their students, and will larger or less, wealthy districts not be able to? There's things that I wonder about with it.
I imagine you would still have fee waivers in this. I mean, if your students
Yeah.
qualified for reduced fees, if
Yeah.
they were taking it on their own, I would imagine some districts would qualify as well.
I would hope so. I haven't, it would be no reason not to. But I just, I wonder about streamlining processes too.
So parents would rather bloat, we pay the state to administer the SBAC? Sorry, to administer SBAC rather than the College Board?
Yeah.
Because money's still going somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's a huge equity issue to provide tests. And actually, it gets to maybe less resentment from students about taking the SBAC and or opting out of the SBAC and or not trying on the SBAC. And then I see at Alameda that it has a significant population that preps and preps and preps and preps for the tests and takes practice tests, and then students of color are less likely to take it more than once, which can, I mean, if you've never taken something like that, that can, just getting over that hurdle can really hurt you. And so if it's provided by the school, then that might give them an opportunity to take it again once they know what it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like the idea.
I think a lot of the support comes from administering an assessment that kids will care about.
Exactly.
I know.
You know, because I think it's, right now, it varies, but I think the students being able to buy in and take an assessment that they're gonna care about and that they want to do well on.
O'Donnell is a teacher, so that gives me a lot more, as far as I'm concerned, he's got a lot more cred, because he knows how this works in the school system, and he sees this potentially as an equity issue, so that more students have access.
Yeah. I mean, there are strong correlations between SAT scores and income.
With this now being given through schools, would this open up an opportunity for schools now being able to like tutor kids? Because I know that with the inequality with income, the richer people will hire tutors, and then people with lower income often can't afford that. So now with it being offered in schools, would that open a door for schools to offer like after school tutoring in these tests?
I think the other thing is that because the test would now be part of the school, that they would have opportunity to do the practice tests, things like that, within the school day.
Well, that was one of the reasons Khan Academy put all of their information online for free.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe giving online access to people for prep materials, but we don't prep students for the SBAC test, right? So it's so, and really the skills you're taught at school support the SAT and the ACT tests, right? So I don't think we'd turn the district into a test prep center.
Yeah.
I will just say, I'm actually had a bunch of kids saying, like, Harry, because they're like, Harry, you do that school board thing, you should ask them if we should do this. So I thought that was funny. Kids are thinking about this on their own, but kids would definitely do better on it and be motivated. Kids had fun picking certain numbers for their math answers. They entertained themselves. So, yeah.
I know, I've heard that a lot.
Yeah,
I know I was years ago, I was that way. I just, test. I hate to admit it, I just hated taking tests, so I would just go, okay, and I would just fill it in.
I had
Anyway.
a friend of mine said he wrote like a funny joke for every English answer and came up with
Maybe I
an
shouldn't say
elaborate
that,
like
should I?
funny number, like spelled the word with numbers for his math answers. I was like, like
I get all those reports, by the way.
yeah, I was like, come on, like
says they flag them and send all those answers to me in PDF documents.
I definitely don't think that this outweighs the equity of offering the SAT and ACT through schools, but I do worry that having it now be required for all schools will sort of renew the emphasis on the SAT and ACT, while universities have recently been moving away from requiring them or putting more emphasis on the application. Yeah. And I'm worried that would like upswing that, where the universities will think, well, now that all schools are offering them, then it's fair again. But it is true, even if the schools offer them, I think that will increase equity, but that won't stop the students who are getting tutored and who are learning the math tricks about like plugging numbers in instead of actually solving it, and who are still going to be doing better on those tests. And I think it's a good thing that the universities are moving away from using standardized testing. And that concern doesn't outweigh it, because I don't know how the universities will react, but that is a concern I have.
So I have to clarify, when you said that, I thought you meant they just were filling in numbers because they didn't feel like taking the test. I didn't know.
They didn't. They just they were like, oh, I'm gonna put 420 as the math problem, so I'm funny, like those kind of numbers.
Oh, I get it.
No,
Okay.
no, they were,
Okay, I didn't do that.
Clarification.
no, yeah, sorry. So yeah, they had fun.
Okay.
So can I ask, so students, really don't just try and do the best. And that's why I was asking is anything I ever did, I always try and do my best. I didn't ever take anything as this is a chance to fool around.
Gal recently took theirs, and I definitely saw a difference between people taking their tests. There were people who left the classroom about 40 minutes after the test started, which is far too quick, and there were people who left 2 hours after, which I think was an appropriate amount of time.
And I've gotten that feedback from my kids and their friends. And they'd get annoyed because some people just were very open. Like, I hate taking the test. I'm tired. I'm just going to fill in the dots. It's nothing I'm getting anything from. And there'd be arguments about it's not good for the school's reputation. And some of the kids just didn't care. That's what I've heard. So, there was always this little rub between the kids.
No, and it quickly spread, after, first period, a teacher apparently had mentioned that, it, doesn't actually, count for anything, and all of a sudden everyone was like, okay, it doesn't count, everyone fail it,
Yeah, so that's one line of defense, is the message coming from the teachers.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know how it's possible, I guess this is now off topic of this, but, I know, when we did, the STAR test, they did, at my middle school, they did, a pizza party if you got, a perfect score or stuff, so I definitely think, looking, I don't know, incentivizing. I don't know, that's also, you don't, I don't know. There are problems with that, too, but that's another thing. But the other interesting thing about this bill that came, because we were debating about it in journalism, is that a lot of students will get diagnosed. This almost could help this problem, although it's not a school district's problem to solve, is that a lot of students that I know try and get learning disabilities just for the tests, and it will get messy there, I'm assuming, because if you're not registered with the school as a learning disability, but then have it for the test, that's another thing. But it's not really.
It might make it harder for them to.
No, it would definitely make it, because some kids don't want that on their learning profile, just want but that's not necessarily the school district's issue to solve, but it could be interesting to see what would happen with that.
I expect the testing, the extra time is going to get a lot tighter after Mr. Singer and the scams that have come to light.
I think so too. Okay. Well,
Thank
more to
you.
come.
Very interesting.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted. And then the last one for tonight is the constitutional amendment. Obviously, this is lots of people watching this very closely. This would lower the threshold from a 2/3 majority to a 55%. It also adds some very specific requirements, which are here. Yeah, I was going to say, they're not different.
I was going to say those are kind of the same one. That's where I
um,
was puzzled by this.
But I think it's a way of sounding better. I think this one is interesting. When it presents, the 2020 ballot, the November ballot could be a very interesting ballot. This and as well as the potential for the Prop 13 split roll, bringing people out to the polls for various tax purposes. I think this one obviously is going to have a lot of conversation on both sides. I think there'll be a lot of opposition to this for lots of reasons. That most of the people in the state don't have school-age children. But I also think on the other side there are, the people who support it because they know that it supports their property value.
Mm-hmm.
So any questions?
Thank you.
Thoughts on that one?
I do appreciate having this as an agenda item, though, because then when trustees report out, we can't really get into a discussion about it, and this provides us a opportunity to really share ideas, and so thank you.
And you mentioned with the start time that has some support for the SAT and ACT. Does that have support at this point?
The start time has a lot of support. It's passed out of a couple of their committees. The late start is looking like it will go. It will be up to Governor probably Newsom to either veto it or not.
Because it's already been approved once.
Right, it's gone through once, and Brown vetoed it.
Rehashing of it.
Yeah. Yeah, the ACT, SAT one, I haven't heard a whole lot of opposition. I think that one has been pretty well supported
I guess
for the most
it
part.
also just allows, so it's flexible
Yeah.
on that one, not dictated.
Right, it allows, you know, when I first heard it, I was like, wait a minute, are you telling me that some people are gonna be able to individually? I read it wrong, and I was like, wait a minute. And they're like, no, the whole district has to opt in or opt out. So, as a district, you do it. So, yeah, and that, but, yeah, other than that, there's, I think the Constitutional Amendment 5 is a steep climb. Yeah.
I would appreciate from the student trustees, if there's any of the issues in these pieces of legislation that students may have a feeling or concern about, if you can relay it to me, because we're going to delegate assembly mid-May, where we make recommendations about what we need to do and so on. So I'd like to hear from the students. If if this goes on further and you have student input, that would be helpful.
Well, and that would be shared with the board if you're going as a delegate, as a board representative, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would just like them to be able to contribute before I go.
Yeah,
in
at a board meeting.
mid-May.
At a
At
board
a board
meeting,
meeting,
yeah.
excuse me.
Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good, thank you.
At the
Because they
next
may
board
say
meeting.
something we don't
Yeah.
agree with.
Right, no. So yeah, I just, again, the JLAC that we sit on. So that's it. Just wanted
Thank
to give
you.
you an update. I will keep you posted as we move forward.
And I do appreciate that. Thank you, Tara. I think we ought to do this regularly.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's a good, just to provide opportunity for other JLAC things too, we'll bring it. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's a lot, there's the pension concerns and,
Yeah, and if there's a gun
And
control
special
issue,
ed,
since we did a
yeah.
resolute, there's lots of things that'll come up. And it's nice to get ahead of it before
yeah.
we're on a time crunch, having to put in an official comment letter or, notify the community of our concerns. So I'm looking at the clock at 7:15. I know everyone has an event to go to at 7:30. So I'm going to talk quickly, because I know we have to also do some signatures. But I'll ask if we have any trustee reports. That was a hint. Did you notice that? Okay, I thought I did that pretty subtle. Okay, talk quick. You got to talk real fast.
Attended Unified Games, and I sat in the shade and was very entertained by all the track members of each school. I watched them because I got to sit in the back. It's very positive experience for all the students.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
And I thank you for that. And then yesterday, Sunday, being at the Huffman event, which I left early because it was a little...
Yep, I left early too.
But the point is...
You didn't like 45 minutes of introductions?
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
What was most important was that I got to talk to you.
Yeah.
So, and that was helpful. So,
Better than that?
Enough said.
So also went to the vaping dinner, and this is really
It
important
was
stuff.
a vaping dinner?
Vaping dinner. Well, that's right. I went to
I
my
didn't go to
students.
that one.
I liked advertising it that way. So now that I'm a high school trustee, I have to keep on what the youth are doing. But the prevention of vaping dinner, and then have started to notice the ads that are coming out that nicotine is brain poison for teens, and building addiction issues, and again the inhibition of proper development of the prefrontal cortex, and you want to be worried about that. And I found very helpful the flyer that the Redwood Tupi committee had
very
put
good.
together. I've actually taken that back to Alameda. I made several copies and went over it briefly with my students, and several students came up to me to get copies of the flyer to share with their friends, particularly the cessation thing. So I think that's great that happened. And then I had the privilege of attending chaperoning a JSA convention in San Jose this weekend. Also saw some Redwood kids and TAM kids. I was there for Alameda, but saw them in action, and that was quite impressive. And then one of the things I'm working on with Alameda, which I think we're working on the TAM district too, is trying to tackle chronic absenteeism at the high school level. And you might want to warn your friends that that includes excused and unexcused absences, and that there are efforts being made statewide to try and get a handle on that because it impacts learning. So I'll certainly bring whatever tips we
Great.
come up with in Alameda for that.
Very good.
I'll pass.
Thank you.
Is that a basketball pass or a hockey pass?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I went to the same events, but it seems like every time you turn around, there's something new another thing to be concerned about. It gets a little overwhelming sometimes, and glad we have the resources we do and the team we have. Any public comment? No public comment. Well, I looked up. I knew nobody was here. Okay, I'm sorry. Corbett, would you like to make a public comment? Okay. Okay, yeah, let's just dribble along. Yeah.
He was going to lose. I had the under.
Okay, we're adjourned. Oh, you have to do the norms, quick. Uh-oh, sorry, everybody. We've got to do the meeting norms. Sorry.
I think we did a good job at not repeating each other ourselves and using our time wisely.
Thank you, right.